Objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. March is Women's History Month, which honors and celebrates the struggles and achievements of American women throughout the history of the United States. Since 1917, when Republican Representative Jeanette Rankin of Montana became the first woman to serve in Congress, 313 women have served as U.S. representatives, senators, or delegates. In 2014, the American people made history by electing a record number of women to Congress. In January 12 new women were sworn in to the House of Representatives, joining 72 incumbents who won re-election. The number of women serving in the Senate has reached 20, and 4 of the 5 non-voting delegates are women. These women with rich perspectives and a commitment to good ideas and teamwork are changing the way Washington does business. The women of the 114th Congress are shaping our nation, and it's an opportunity and responsibility that we take seriously. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. For what purpose does a gentleman from Nebraska seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise as well today at observation of National Women's History Month. During this time, it is important to celebrate the achievements and the contributions of women in our great nation. I am proud to recognize my friend, Mayor Jean Stothard, the 51st mayor of the great city of Omaha, Nebraska, as the first woman elected to this office. In 1993, Mrs. Stothard moved to Nebraska, quickly embracing her new home. Her advocacy garnered an appointment to the Millard School Board, a position to which she was reelected 3 times. Expanding her passion for service, she sought and won election to the Omaha City Council in 2009. With a strong work ethic and ambition, Mayor Stothard was elected mayor of the city of Omaha on May 14, 2013. An illustration by our very famous editorial cartoonist Jeff Korturba portrays Mayor Stothard breaking the proverbial glass ceiling in Omaha. Good for her. She represents a whole phalanx of women in Omaha who are taking leadership positions in our community and in our state. Thank you for this opportunity, and I would yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentleman yields back the remainder of his time. For what purpose does a gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the House Agriculture Subcommittee on Conservation and Forestry, which I chair, held a hearing to review the definition of the waters of the United States, proposed rule, and its impact on rural America. Enacted in 1972, the Clean Water Act established a federal-state partnership to protect our nation's navigable waterways. However, despite strong opposition from Congress and the public, the Obama administration has taken upon itself to redefine the Clean Waters Act's jurisdictional waters. The EPA's proposed rule could have serious consequences for rural America and the nation's economy. Yesterday, members of the House Committee on Agriculture asserted that the administration has acted on its own, without input from the states and the stakeholders, to broaden the scope of the Clean Water Act, threatening the livelihood of farmers, ranchers, and rural America. It is my hope that yesterday's hearing will spur the administration to pull the rule and consult with the states and stakeholders first, or re-propose the rule and allow a new round of public comment. Mr. Speaker, there's too much on the line to continue down the current path. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does a gentlewoman from California seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Today, I have introduced the Addressing the Wealth Gap resolution, which calls on Congress to recognize the wealth gap and racial wealth gap as a national economic crisis and focus its efforts on their elimination. This country is facing the widest wealth gap since 1983. The statistics are alarming. Wealthy families make nearly 7 times as much as middle-class families and 70 times as much as lower-class families. African Americans have 13 times and Latinos have 10 times less than wealth than white households. White households have $100,000 more in retirement savings than African Americans and Latinos. The cause of this record-level wealth gap stems from a structural crisis that started well before the Great Recession. Then the recession hit, the housing market collapsed, and made everything worse. In the aftermath, middle-income families and people of color have had to endure income inequality, slow wage growth, skyrocketing student loans, and continued unequal access to quality education and barriers to the housing market. These problems are widened, and they have widened the gap and require Congress to implement pragmatic solutions. We cannot sit idly by and expect things to change. This is why I'm introducing the Addressing the Wealth Gap Resolution. The first step to resolving this problem is acknowledging that it exists. And I encourage all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join in and focus on the goal of rebuilding wealth in America.